If you're stuck playing low-stakes poker, I'm going to tell you the #1 reason why. I've spent the last 3 years coaching over 100 players, and the ones who've gone from low stakes to mid stakes to high stakes all have this one thing in common. It's not intelligence. I know a lot of guys you may consider dummies who are making a lot of money playing poker. It's not work ethic. I know a lot of guys you may consider lazy pieces of crap who are making a lot of money playing poker, and it's not experience. I know a lot of guys who couldn't even tell you what a straight was when we first started working, who are now making a lot of money playing poker. The #1 reason most players are stuck at low stakes, they are asking the wrong questions. When I first started playing poker, I realized I was asking way too many questions focused around myself instead of what my opponents are doing. Questions like, do I have a range advantage? What is my minimum defense frequency? Am I balanced in this spot? Me. My win rate really took off when I stopped focusing on myself and started asking what my opponents were doing. I'm gonna take you through 2 hands. One is the pre-flop caller and one is the pre-flop raiser, and show you what questions I would ask to win the most money in these spots. Let's start off as the pre-flop caller. Let's jump in. All right, so let's jump in. First example as a pre-flop caller, we're playing 2-5, 1K effective. Button is going to open to $20. We're going to defend in the big blind with ace-6 suited. We are going to a flop king-3 deuce. We're gonna check it over in flow. We've got the nut flush draw here to the pre-flop raiser, and he is going to bet $30 here now, 3/4 pot on the flop. So an unhelpful question to ask here on the flop would be a question like, do I have a nut advantage? Who cares? This isn't gonna help you win more money. A more helpful question to ask here on this flop would be, will they fold a lot if I check raise? And to help me come to that answer, I may ask some more specific questions like, are they range betting for this size? Would they bet $30 here on this flop if they were range betting, or might they choose a smaller size? Do they split their sizes? Say, do they sometimes choose a smaller size when they have weaker hands or draws or just kind of showdown value hands like pocket 9s here? Is this villain type the type of player to fold top pair good kicker by the river? And do I have the stack depth to make them fold that type of hand? So those would be some of the more specific questions to help me come to that answer. Will they fold if I check raise? When a player takes this size on the flop, usually they're just going to be weighted towards stronger hands. It means they're probably not going to be range betting. Maybe they'd be checking back some of their weaker hands. Maybe they'd be betting a smaller size with some of their weaker hands. I would just probably continue here as a call, just expecting us not to be able to get quite a lot of folds if we check raise here. So we are going to call and go to a turn. The turn is a blank. We check it over in flow once again. And now our opponent bets pot. An unhelpful question to ask here on the turn, maybe something like, where am I at in my range? This doesn't help. A more helpful question in this spot would be, are they over or under double barreling? And to help me come to that answer, I may ask more specific questions like, are they always choosing this size with draws? Might they slow down sometimes on the turn when they have a draw? Are they always betting the flop for this size when they don't have very strong hands? So those would be some of the questions I'd be asking here to help me determine, are they over or under double barreling for this size? I would probably come to the conclusion versus most players, again, that when they 3/4 pot on the flop and now pot the turn, this is just going to be very, very value heavy. So we are going to call on the turn, and now we are going to go to a river. Look at that. We make top pair. Once again, we are going to check it over in flow to the pre-flop raiser. Now with the pot being just over $300, the pre-flop raiser is going to bet $250. So again, they raised pre-flop, they bet 3/4 pot on the flop, they potted the turn, now the river is an ace, and they are going very nearly pot again. An unhelpful question to ask here on this river would be, what is my minimum defense frequency? It's just, it doesn't matter. A much more helpful question to ask on this river would simply be, are they over or under bluffing? That sounds simple, but it's kind of hard to come to the right answer there. So I would ask some more specific questions like, could they be betting worse for value? Are they capable of bluffing in this line? Is this size significant for the game? Do they have non-showdown value hands that would be natural to turn into bluffs here? So let's walk through those. Could they be betting worse for value? Probably not. If they had a hand like king, queen, or king, jack, that hand would probably just check back this river. It certainly wouldn't bet nearly pot again when an ace comes. Are they capable? Well, this is a question you're going to have to answer yourself by having experience and having hours played with the villain across from you. In general, when players choose the big size on the flop, the big size on the turn, and the big size on the river, I find it unlikely, especially when an ace comes on the river, that most players are capable of finding enough bluffs in this line. Is the size significant? Well, it's getting there. $250 in a 2-5 game. It's getting pretty big. It's on that borderline of, yeah, this is a pretty big size for the game. And do they have non-showdown value hands that would make sense here to turn into a bluff? Sure, they've got a few, maybe hands like Jack 10 of spades, Queen 10 of spades, hands like that. But specifically, when we have the ace of spades and now the ace comes on the river, there's not a ton of natural spade bluffs here. 4-5 gets there on the river. So do they have a lot of non-showdown value here? Probably not. So in this spot, I would probably deduce that based upon all the clues we have, based upon those river questions we asked, and the fact that they bet big on the flop and they potted the turn, they are almost certainly under bluffing this line. And yes, we have top pair here, but we don't beat any of their value. They are under bluffing. We have a bluff catcher. And if they are under bluffing and we have a bluff catcher, we should be folding all of our bluff catchers because every bluff catcher is going to be more profitable as a fold than as a call. So in this specific spot, I would fold on the river. So now let's say we're playing the same spot and instead the river is a beautiful 7 of spades, giving us the nuts instead of an offsuit ace. An unhelpful question to ask in this spot would be something like, am I unbalanced if I lead here? A more helpful question in this spot would be something like, will they bet thinly enough if I check? And will they bluff enough if I check? Most villains in general in live poker do not bet thinly enough. I would not be surprised to see ace king or pocket threes here checked back greater than 90% of the time. On the second question, I think we have to carry that logical thread all the way from the flop through the river. Does villain have a lot of bluffs when they go 3/4 pot flop and then pot on the turn? If they were bluffing, it's most likely that they had a hand like Jack 10 of spades or Queen 10 of spades, and those types of hands aren't always going to take the big size on the flop and blast on the turn at 100% frequency. So I do think they just don't get to this river with a lot of bluffs, and a lot of their hands that were thick value have been downgraded. So if we check to them, they're not going to bluff all that often. They're not going to bet thinly enough, and I expect this river to go check, check often. So because of those factors, I would strongly consider leading if our opponent is not going to value bet thinly enough and they're not going to be bluffing enough. I would go ahead and lead for whatever size I thought they would call with ace king or pocket threes. Probably a pretty chunky size here. I may go 250 on this river, and look at that, we get called and we rake in a nice little pot. All right, guys, real quick, if you're enjoying the video, please hit that subscribe button. You subscribe, I will kiss you on the mouth, on the lips. All you got to do, subscribe. Me, Marc Goone, kiss you. Thank you. All right, so we're playing 2-5 again. This time we're 600 effective. We're going to open pocket kings on the button here. Villain is going to call in the big blind. Jack 9 deuce with a couple of spades. They're going to check it over to us. An unhelpful question in this spot would be something like, do I have a range advantage? No. Who cares? A more helpful question I would ask on this flop is, what is the biggest size we can bet where they will raise off their strong shit and still call with their weak shit? And some questions I may ask to help me come to that answer would be, are they going to play their value fast or slow on this board? Well, this board's pretty wet and dynamic, so they're probably going to play their value pretty fast, even if we choose a bigger size. Will they play their draws more aggressively if we bet smaller? Quite possibly. A lot of players get a little bit more aggressive with their draws if we choose a smaller size. And finally, will they float wider if I choose a smaller size? So we would love for this player to call with a hand like pocket sixes with a spade or something like that. So if we choose a little bit smaller size, will they call with a hand that is just almost drawing dead against us here? So those would be the questions I ask to help me come to that answer. And usually in single raise pots in position, I default to around 1/2 pot. So when they check it over to us, I am going to go 1/2 pot here. They are going to call and we are going to go to a turn. An unhelpful question on this turn would be, what size do I need to bet to protect my hand? Who cares? A much more helpful question to ask on this turn would be, are they capped? And if yes, bet big. And if no, bet small. Remember, the question we asked on the flop is, what size can we bet where they raise their strong shit and call with their weak shit? Well, the turn here doesn't change the nuts. It's a complete blank. If they're raising their strong shit on the flop, if they're raising Jack 9, pocket 9s, pocket deuces, that means the best hand getting to this turn usually that they're gonna have is a hand like ace jack. So that would mean, yes, they are capped. So what's the biggest size possible we could bet here to get value where they're still going to call with that top of their range? Now, they no longer have those strong hands that beat us. We don't have to worry about those. So what's the biggest size we can bet here where they still call with ace jack and ace x of spades? Probably going to be pretty big here, right? Let's say this turn was the 4 of spades. We would ask, are they capped? And it would be no. They're not capped if the turn is the 4 of spades, because on this specific turn, they could still have a lot of flushes that would just check call on the flop. So when they are uncapped, we ask a slightly different question. What's the biggest size we can bet where they still raise off all of their flushes, but continue with a bunch of weaker hands. So on this turn, a complete blank, complete badoogie, I think they're just going to be doing quite a lot of calling when they have ace jack or ace x of spades or king jack or something like that. I think all those hands are going to call a very big size. So we are going to put in the overbet on this turn. They are going to call, and we are going to go to a river. An unhelpful question to ask here on this river would be, what size can I bet to be balanced? No. A much more helpful question to ask here on this river would be, are they going to call a lot or are they going to fold a lot? Now this sounds so simple, and how do we come to that answer? Again, I would ask more specific questions to help. One of the questions I like to ask on the river is, what would I do with the inverse? And this helps me distance the forest from the trees. What would I do here if I had a bluff? Let's say we got to this river with queen 10 of clubs. Would I feel comfortable jamming all in with queen 10 if they had a hand like ace jack? Probably not, right? We have just over a pot size bet left. All the draws bricked. I don't think ace jack is folding. So therefore, our value size should be big. And our bluff size should probably just be relatively small, right? If we have queen 10 of clubs here, we can just breathe on this pot. We can bet $100, $125, right? And just get ace x of spades to fold, get king x of spades to fold, and we lose the minimum against ace jack when we have queen 10. So that's why I would ask, what would I do with the inverse in this spot to help me come to the best decision? Because this is a spot where we think they are going to be calling quite a lot, our value size should probably just be big. So when they check it over, we are going to jam, villain is going to call, and we are going to scoop in a nice little pot with our pocket kigglies. All right, guys, hopefully this video on asking good questions helps you level up your win rate right away and escape the low stakes. Thank you guys, and have a gentle